したいとで読み直しているで読み直しているだけがで読み直しているで読み直しているで読み直しているで読み直しているで読み直しているエキスしたいとで読み直しているで読み直しているだけがで読み直しているしたいとで読み直しているで読み直しているだけがで読み直しているで読み直しているで読み直しているで読み直しているで読み直しているエキスしたいとで読み直しているで読み直しているだけがで読み直しているで読み直しているyou
Welcome to the city of the unwritten. A city that's given so much. A city of people who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty. A city of makers, entrepreneurs, musicians, artists. A city of laughter, memories, and people who will welcome others in with a cup of heartwarming handmade coffee. A city of people, young and old, working together. People who explore, live, and grow together. But what makes this place special? Being listed year after year as one of the best places to raise a family. Maybe because we have a community recognized for its safe neighborhoods and revered for its low unemployment. A city where adventure is everywhere you look, where you can pioneer your own story. We've opened a new page to write on for the generations ahead. Welcome to Bismarck. Come write your story.
Start with some crowd wrangling here. Hey, for those of you in the lobby, hey, we're starting in here, guys. Are you going to join us?
Down here very much, remember?
Well, I showed up a little late. I do. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome. Happy 1 Million Cups Wednesday. My name is Tyler. I'm with the North Dakota Small Business Development Centers, and I am happy to be your MC this morning. We're going to hear from a couple of mission-driven organizations doing some awesome work in Bismarck and Mandan. They've launched some programs. They're trying to grow and scale so that they can maximize their reach and positive impact in Bismarck, Mandan. So looking forward to hearing from them. First, we got a little house cleaning to do. So first thing, I guess, how many first-timers we got here this morning? Couple, Jim and Cindy, thank you for being here. Couple back there, all right. Did make sure you get mugged, right? So everybody gets their mug. Every time you show up, you get a sticker. At every, 5-10 intervals or so, you get a different piece of 1 Million Cup swag. So it's a really great coffee mug. How many people have their mugs here this morning? There we go. Cheers, y'all. Happy Wednesday. All right, so make sure you get your mug if it's your first time you're here. We'd love to see you back. We do this every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. With the exception of the next 2 weeks. We usually take the 4th of July and one of the weeks before and after that off. So we'll be, next week we will be here. The following 2 weeks we will not be. So sorry for the confusion there, but. All right, so first things first, let's say thanks to our sponsors here. These organizations up on the screen are businesses and organizations in town that support us here at 1 Million Cups. We run on a pretty lean budget. It's a grassroots volunteer team, but we do have some coffee to pay for. We rent this space and some other odds and ends that we do. All these organizations help support us there. Sponsorships for 1 Million Cups are always available, so if you or your organization wants to support with some monetary contribution, please connect with myself or Evan Anderson up here, and we'll get you the information you need. So what is 1 Million Cups? Why do we do this every week? So 1 Million Cups is a free weekly networking and educational program. We put a different entrepreneur or really anybody doing interesting work in Bismarck and Mandan on stage every week. They talk about the story of the opportunity they're pursuing or what they're trying to get off the ground, talk about some of the challenges they have in accomplishing that, and then we facilitate a little community conversation, hoping to connect them with folks and give them some good feedback, setting them up with the best chance to succeed. So the question we're asking is, can we change the face of our startup community by connecting local entrepreneurs over 1 million cups of coffee? All right, so we have two presenters this morning. After they present, we'll do our usual Q&A session. Kate will be our mic runner this morning. She'll be running around with the mic mug. So if you have a question, as always, raise your hand, and Kate will get you the mic. And some community announcements. I think we just have one this morning. Just Kate.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Joel. Kate from the Downtowners. We have the Art and Wine Walk coming up. JMO, just sneak in here. What? We have the Art and Wine Walk coming up Thursday, which is tomorrow. We still have a handful of tickets left. You could just scan the QR code or go to downtownbismarck.com. We've got 20 local businesses downtown, 20 different wine varieties, and 20 different musicians or artists that we'll showcase tomorrow evening. So it should be a great night. Downtownbismarck.com if you want tickets.
Thank you, Kate. All right, anybody else with community announcements this morning? None? Okay, sweet. Well then, without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker this morning. Surprise Church, Pastor Matt Anderson is with us this morning. He has a really neat program called Camp Kindness, helping kids learn leadership ability through acts of kindness. He's got some other programs he wants to talk about that he's trying to grow. Let's give a warm 1 Million Cups welcome to Matt Anderson.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me here. It's really cool to hang out with you guys. And I normally try to watch online, but it's great to be here in person. So thanks for the time, and thanks, Tyler, for hanging out and having me here. So this is our logo. There's a surprise church in Bismarck as well, and our tagline that we say a lot: church has left the building. So a little background of the history. So about 10 years ago, I've been a pastor since about 2005. I've been working in churches since the late 90s, which makes me officially old, and but mostly in more traditional settings. And while I was serving this traditional setting in the Twin Cities metropolitan area, I just ended up camping out in this passage in the Bible called the parable of the prodigal son. How many of you have heard of that? Most people have heard of it. It's kind of like Noah's Ark. Most people have heard of it, you know. And here in this story, there's this young man that leaves, that demands his inheritance now. Like, if you're a kid, don't do that, right? Dad, I wish you were dead, and I want your stuff now. I don't want to wait till you die. So he demands his father's inheritance now, takes it, and goes to a far-off land and squanders it on wild living, quote unquote. Now, you can get as X-rated in your imagination as you want, right? And only decides to come home when he runs out of cash and he's got an empty belly. And he comes home thinking this: I could never be a son again because I wish my dad were dead, but my dad's hired hands eat really good, and so maybe I could get a job with my former dad. But then it's the scripture, the story says, but when he was a long way off, his father saw him and ran to him. His dad was actually waiting on the front porch for him to come home, and he takes off, doing something a wealthy Middle Eastern landowner would never do. They never ran. You would get a servant to do it. You're dignified, you're old. Plus, when you run, you hike up your toga, revealing the ancient Middle Eastern version of boxer shorts, which is nothing, and you dishonor yourself, and you run, and you don't do that. But this dad didn't care about the shame, didn't care about the convention, didn't care about the rules, and he ran to his son. And when he get there, he didn't beat him up, didn't put him through a job interview. He hugged him, kissed him, put a ring on his finger, a robe on his back. And then he threw an intergenerational surprise party. Now, as I'm reading this, I'm like, man, a lot of times we hyper-individualize things and say, "This, how do I do this?" But it occurred to me, this is a communal passage for a community to live out. And what hit me was, this is a story of how a church is meant to look. And all too often doesn't look. And I had to get real serious, like, does the church I'm at right now look like this? Or do we tend to be more of a fortress than a force? What does our front porch look like? So we moved to Bismarck, kind of decided before we moved, we said, we're gonna go wherever we can find a sponsor church that says, we love this, we want to help you. So I just started casting the vision and ended up sharing it at the church my wife grew up in Bismarck, Charity Lutheran Church. They sponsored us at a light level. We just kind of started on a shoestring budget. And within 3 years, our goal was to start a new surprise church because we want to be a multiplying organization, so which we did that in Mandan in 2017. And then, the rest is history as we continue to grow and build and adapt to the changing times. So that's a little bit of the background. I want to take you through a few of the things that we do just to kind of capture the spirit of what we try to do to be this front porch father trying to reach the lost son kind of church. And I think the key, though, is the lost son came home hoping for a job at best or punishment at worst. And so he came with low expectations. And I think low expectations are endemic in our culture. Like, I think people have very low expectations of the church. There's a book called Unchristian by Gabe Lyons. He talked about here's the negative stereotypes people have about the church that we sort of try to address specifically as we do what we do. And so there's all those negative expectations out there. And I think low expectations are our best friend. I love it because it's very easy to surprise people who have very low expectations, right? And so like, oh God, these people are actually nice and they're not judgmental and they're not hateful and they're not phobic and they're not whatever. So we do in the summertime, we just rent out Custer Park and do church on Wednesday nights there in addition to Sundays. And we get homeless people walking by and sitting down. We had a lady last year walk in and sit down with a case of beer and just listen to the sermon, just pounding beers. And we get everything in between, Families biking by and like, oh, let's just stop and see what they have to say. So we love doing things in places where we intersect with people in different walks of life. We also try to really empower our people to be the church rather than just go to church. And so we have a webpage where we say, you get to plan your own summer grill adventure. We will teach you how to, instead of being in your backyard, as we all are, with your grill or your fire pit, we show you how to do it in your front yard, inviting your neighbors. And we have people that have planned their own summer grill adventure, invited their neighbors, and gotten thank you cards from neighbors saying, we've lived here 20 years, and never once have we done anything or anyone done anything to meet their neighbors. And you wonder why we have an isolation mental health crisis, right? So we try to not just have programs people come and consume, but we try to teach them how to be this church that leaves the building. We do things like when the parade's coming up in Mandan, we like, hey, we're going to just walk in that parade and we're going to hand out these handouts that I brought today and just try to reach thousands of people and let them know, like, hey, we're not just going to wait for you to come and try to convince you that our programming is good. We want to go where the people are and connect and play some tunes and dance on the street and just convey that we're a different kind of place. We rent out actually the Dakota Stage Theater every Lenten season before Easter, and we raise funds for Arts for All. It's a charity that helps underprivileged people access the arts, and we have actually community auditions for people in our community who want to do like a biblical character portrayal and live music and original music. So we like doing things like that are try to support one cause and then deploy the gifts of a segment in our city. So Faces of Easter has been a huge success. One of our other taglines is helping families win, where we decide, hey, we're going to figure out how to help your family win, and oftentimes by sharing creative resources and stuff that before you ever visit the church, you've gotten helpful stuff from us online. Our primary focus, though, is to try to help people find a community group so that when they come to Surprise, they get connected to a group of people that they do life with, share a meal with once a week in their homes, because people don't open their homes to each other anymore. And when they do, and when they start talking about important things with people consistently, radical change starts to happen and growth starts to happen. Marriages are de-isolated, addictions get discussed, and it's very, very powerful. So this is our top priority. We set our goals based on how many people can we put in a group every year, not butts and seats on Sundays, but how many people are in a group. We also have an organization called the Mercy Box we created that you see the red totes all over town, and dozens of businesses and nonprofits apply to us. We collect different donations every month, and businesses are glad to have something that they can do that's good with their employees. And then at the end of the month, we deliver all those donations to the nonprofit that we're partnering with that month. And then finally, Camp Kindness we do every summer. Now that COVID is over, we can do it again. When this next week, we have 240 kids, most of whom don't go to our church at Northridge Elementary School. I get to squeeze into the tights. You're welcome for not having the waist down in the picture. You're very welcome for that, but I have lots of layers. It's totally safe, don't worry. And it's just an amazing way to build relationships with people who wouldn't darken the door of a church, but who want their kids to learn how to lead by being kind. And so this year, here's our kindness contingent, like the Avengers kind of thing, you know. So we're expanding our superhero group. My daughter is Energetica. She's doing the day one talk about leadership through kindness. Her boyfriend is to the left. You can bet I put the screws down and told him that he's coming. I didn't ask him. And so this is something that it's one of our primary summer ministries, summer programs, and it's just a tremendous way to reach people. Here's the deal, though. Giving patterns and attendance patterns have changed dramatically over the last 10 years. We have people that call our church their home and come just Christmas and Easter or just watch online. Giving patterns, especially with inflation, have changed significantly so that we have to think, how do we creatively fund our mission? If it's important to us, we have to figure out how to fund it. And how do we do that when the average person has a smaller and smaller slice of their resources available for donations to what we do? And it's easy for us to burn through people and money really fast and then say, well, now what do we do to really look at the future and say we're planning for it? And so our options are this. We could just maintain as is and just plug along like we're doing. We're doing a lot of good work, but we also sense like God's calling us to something bigger in our own kind of phraseology. So option B, we could invest in like a building and try to expand our programs by having a physical footprint. People walk by, see a sign, stop by. And that's one possibility we talk a lot about, but we also know that that's not our primary mission, isn't to own a building and own space. So we're currently very intrigued by option C, which is what does it look like to scale what we do for maximum impact? And in specifically taking these 4 areas, what would it look like to take Camp Kindness to a level where we're not just doing it once a year in one place, but what would it look like to not reach hundreds but thousands or tens of thousands of people locally and beyond? To have multiple camps, maybe its own staff, to have things, templates that people can do this program in different cities and purchase the curriculum and have videos created. Same with the Mercy Box. What would it look like to not have dozens of businesses, but hundreds or even thousands and gather a mountain of donations for nonprofits locally and beyond? What would it look like to take our community groups and build what we're building non-local groups? We have a group now that meets in Washburn. We have 3 groups that meet in the Twin Cities. We want to have hundreds ultimately of groups where if someone wants to start a group in a city, we will give them a toolbox, training, and coaching to start a Surprise Church community group wherever they live. And then finally, our vision for helping families win, we want to create a digital ministry platform, as we call it, so that we share resources, provide tools, tips, and content for people wherever they live so that they can grow, that they can find encouragement and hope. And we see all these things not only as a way of expanding our impact, but also as a way that revenue-wise we can fund our mission for what we do on that level as well as locally. And so we're dreaming about how to do this, what it would look like to do this, and how to go from where we are to there. And that's just very much where we are. So it's not a finished product, it's in the vision phase right now. And I'm really excited about it, but also sort of challenged by it because it's a very different way of looking at doing what we do. That's probably over my time. So thank you guys for listening very much. I'm going to hand it over.
To that. Thank you, Matt. All right, so Surprise Church doing some good things in town. We also have Jim and Cindy Miller with us this morning. They have a project called the Dream Center that they'd like to tell you a little more about today. So let's give a welcome to Jim and Cindy here.
So we'll start with a correction. Our last name is Barnhart. It's okay. Yeah, that's okay. Okay, so we're Jim and Cindy Barnhart, and we have the Dream Center Bismarck here on the south side of town. We're located at 1805 Park Avenue. Mm-hmm. I keep forgetting my address, but that's okay.
The address there has been kind of a fun thing to work with. We almost didn't purchase the lot because of the Park Avenue part of it. It sounds very elaborate, very upscale, very New York City, but...
yeah, we moved up
to
the lowest income area in town.
Exactly, and we were very
awesome.
happy to get that lot.
Yes, yeah, we were. We really wanted to reach more people. We wanted to make a really big community impact. And so that's why we chose that area, because we knew we were within walking distance of many different areas that would be benefiting from our programs.
The vision for what's now the Dream Center started about 6 years ago. It was May 29th of 2016 when I woke up, and everything that's now the Dream Center essentially was planted in my mind. It was a meal ministry with services to help those in need. Everything would be free. And I asked Cindy when she got up that morning what she thought, and she said, "You know what you need to do, Jim." And I thought, well, between God asking me to do this and my wife Cindy, I really needed to do it, or else I'd be in big trouble all the way around. So, we started doing a lot of searching in the community, talked to a lot of community leaders, the public school system, the mayor. We talked with a lot of churches in town, other meal entities, and finally ended up settling on the banquet to partner with. And the reason we settled on the banquet was because of their ability to establish a sense of community. Pastor Matt just talked about community. That's really an important thing, and we see food as a way of bringing people together, and then what we do with them after that is almost endless, as far as the free programs that will lead them to a better place in life.
So we started the Adopt-A-Block food program, and it first started out just 2 days a week. We went to Jeanette Myrie, and we also went to South Central, and we were serving a few families each week at each place. Really wasn't a whole lot. I mean, it was more than it should be. It was more than one person, but we were seeing that need was really growing. And when the pandemic hit, we ended up going 5 days a week because people were not getting the food that they needed. They were really struggling. And then when we went 5 days a week, Mandan Schools called.
Yes, and actually as far as the school systems go, we collaborated with Bismarck Public Schools and with Great Plains Food Bank on the best locations to establish our Adopt-A-Block. We established the locations based on income demographics and accessibility. So with the advent of COVID, we went to 5 days a week here in Bismarck, and with In a week of starting 5 days over here, we got a call from Mandan Public Schools as to establishing a location over there. So that turned out to be the 6th day. So yeah, Jim really didn't get a day off after that, so.
No, but during all of this, we had been looking for a place to house this. We needed a warehouse, we needed freezers, we needed coolers, and in the meantime, the banquet had started serving more days per week. I think they were up to 4 days a week at that point. And they were seeing an increase also of people coming. And we tried finding all kinds of places. And then it was really, truly a God thing. We got this land down here. We had put a bid in on it, and they refused it for whatever reason. And then Jim got a notification from Piper Auctions, online auctions, and he said, well, what do you think? Should I sign up for this and see what they have? And I said, you didn't solicit that, it just came to you, yeah, sign up. So he did, and we were watching the auctions. We noticed that this piece of land that we had been looking at was on there. And nobody bid. Finally, somebody bid, and it started going up, and we got it for, I think, about half of what they had been asking for. So that was truly a God thing. And then while he was we did this at the store online, and when he went into the back to make a couple of telephone calls, of course, I'm watching the auction because they're interesting, and I see this missile silo come up, and they only wanted $55,000 for it, and I'm like, oh, I should just hit enter and explain later, and he comes in, he goes, what are you doing? I said, nothing. And he said, you get away from my computer. We are done. I'm like, yeah, but look at this. He goes, do you know where that's at? I said, no, but it looks cool.
So the short version of that is we are not living 200 feet underground.
No, but, maybe next time it comes up. I'll leave him out of the loop. So anyhow, we got this land, and we kind of missed a really important part. We had gone down to Los Angeles to see the Dream Center because we were told by one of the pastors here in town that really what we were thinking of was a Dream Center, and we didn't know what that was. So we went down there and we spent a week. We went out and did a lot of their missions and, helped in the communities and learned how they ran it. Well, each Dream Center in America, and there are about 65, and there are about 20 overseas, I guess, each one fills a need that's in their community. So some of them have housing for people, some of them do addiction counseling, some do other types of things, just the food distribution. Well, we wanted to do something that fit the needs of what Bismarck has, Bismarck and the surrounding communities. So that's why we modeled some of the programs after what they had, and we're making sure that any other needs that come up, we're working at filling. One of the programs that we're doing right now that we just started is the Great Start Breakfast Program. And it helps families to get a good start to the day. We make a full breakfast. They come in sometime between 7 and 9 because we open at 7. And then they have a breakfast together, and then they go off on their day. Now, I had talked with one of the gals from the school, and she said that as of June 1st, there are no more monies for the free breakfast for everyone. So if you don't have the money, sometimes it's hard to get your kids fed. So she said it would be an excellent time to start it so people would get the idea that they can come down there, they would know about it before school starts. Then they can come and get their breakfast. We give them a sack lunch to take, and then they have what they need until supper. And then if they want to come back, the banquet serves supper. So we have them covered, essentially. But I put a slide in for your breakfast. Oh, you did? Okay. Oh, yep, that's the Dream Center with the new lights, which is cool. Oh, yeah, there it is. Look at that. So we do have that. It's Monday through Friday. On Saturday and Sunday, the banquet actually serves a lunch, so we don't do a breakfast. That wouldn't make sense. But they can come anytime, and it's open to the whole community. We have people coming who are just, the husband and wife. We have older couples coming. People from the homeless shelter will come in because they're only about 3 blocks away. And then we have families. We have a family of 9 with 7 kids who come in, and they get their breakfast every morning and then get a sack lunch to go. And it's been working out really well. We started with 1 person because nobody really knew about it. But today, I think, Jim is going to be putting up some fence posts so that we can hang a banner so people can see that when they drive by, because it's not obvious just looking at the building.
You know, I guess one of the things that we've learned is to not despise small beginnings. Our first serve with the Adopt Block program was, I believe, 34 households. And what that is, it's a free grocery distribution. We collect product from area grocery stores. We have a truck that stops at grocery stores different times throughout the week. It's also supplemented with product from Great Plains Food Bank, as well as donations from area churches and businesses. Today, on average, the Adopt a Block truck is serving about 600 households a week. In 2021, the truck distributed almost 1.1 million pounds of grocery product. The IRS value on that product is roughly about $2 million. The cool thing about that is that's mostly donations as far as product, and it's not a government program. So yes, it's donations, which that's always appreciated. As far as other impacts in the community, we about a month ago opened up the Dream Center Food Pantry. That's presently serving about 30 to 35 households a day. That's open 6 days a week as well. We've got the breakfast going now. The banquet, which is our sister nonprofit, that's been running for about 17 years. They've expanded from serving meals 4 days a week to 7 days a week now at the Dream Center. Last week, I think they had about 1,200 meals go out. So that's an impact in the community. But really, you know, it seems like we're all about the food, and that's where we start, but it's the connections that are made after that. We have 2 healthcare entities that will be coming in that we'll be working with, doing healthcare checkups for people free of charge. We do have a church group that's coming in, actually 2 different church groups that are coming in doing different things. We have a clothing distribution. That's the one I was trying to think of that we did about 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago yesterday, they distributed clothing to a large group of individuals that came. There were a couple hundred people that came for that one. Free clothing, a ministry out of Tennessee, I believe, had donated that through Kingdom Business. And we've got other groups that we are working with putting things together. Go ahead, Cindy.
No, I was just going to say there's, we have people who are coming in and they're going to teach the community to cook with basic things, making nutritious meals. Honestly, if you give me a bag of dried peas, if I don't have a straw to shoot them at somebody, I don't know what to do with them. So I didn't grow up with that type of thing. And so if you teach people that these are really good foods and you get a lot of nutrients from them, there's fiber, there's protein. There's protein. So, you know, not knowing what to do with it is really the main problem. It's all about education and getting people to a place where they can feel comfortable doing the things that they really need to do, even though they don't know how to do it right now. We also have people coming in to teach financial courses, budgeting, help people, you know, to create a budget. Sometimes it feels like you don't have any money, but it's just leaking. So if you can stop those leaks, then people actually get to a better place. But really, it's all about getting people in and feeling that community and making sure that they can get the connections that they need in order to make their families better, which will make the whole community better.
As far as needs that we have at the Dream Center, we do have space available for approved nonprofits to work in the facility at no charge to them when they're offering free programs to the community. We have an event center that seats 183. We have a conference room that's available. We have 4 offices that are available. The Trinity Hall dining area seats 283, so we have that facility to use as well. It's all about awareness, getting the word out on what we're doing, so that's really important to us. And we're also looking for financial donations, or in-kind donations, of course, just to try to promote those free programs. Again, we're not government financed, let's put it that way.
But if you want to personally be involved, we're looking for people who will drive a non-CDL licensed truck to go around and pick up and then distribute. And we are also looking for someone who wants to manage a kitchen early in the morning, because I get up at 5 and that's not really good for anybody by about 4 in the afternoon. So it is being managed right now, but I'm actually looking for somebody who feels comfortable helping other people to prepare the breakfast and then serve.
The other thing that I should mention about the Dream Center is that we work with a number of churches. They see it as somewhat of a neutral ground. You know, I love what Pastor Matt was talking about as far as getting out in the community. And that's one of the things that we're trying to nurture, is not just churches, but organizations, getting out there and helping the people that are a little bit less fortunate. So we appreciate your time here today, and hopefully you folks can help us spread the word. Oh, okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Jim and Cindy. It's time for Barnhart. Yes, I know. I'm so sorry. It's a problem I have. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Well, so yeah, a little Q&A conversation with our speakers here this morning. If you have a question, of course, raise your hand as always, and Kate will bring you the mug over there.
Yeah, I also have something to point out. I want to drive the truck, as we talked about. But you guys live at the Dream Center.
We do.
Yeah. Could you just touch on how you came across and why you do that, why you live there?
Well, we determined that we wanted to put everything into this. So we sold the house because it was too big to clean anyhow. And we did make sure that we had a small, well, not that small, but there is a caretaker's department at the Dream Center. So when we're no longer able to take care of it or facilitate, then
In
that
another
will,
40 years or so.
well, something like that. I'm going to live till I'm 103. So anyhow, when we're no longer able to do it, then we would hope that the next people who come in would stay there also, because, well, partly for security and partly just to make sure that things are moving ahead the way that they need to.
Question over here.
Yeah, thank you for both of you for those presentations. Are all of your staff volunteer, or do you have any paid staff? At the Dream Center, sorry.
Everyone is volunteer except one person. We had to hire her because we just couldn't keep up. It was growing so rapidly. So we have an administrative assistant. Her name is Doreen Quist, and she's so awesome. She's worth like 5 times what we pay her. But she's really good. She does all of the scheduling. She lets us know where we need to be, and if we have to go someplace, how many pairs of underwear to pack. So she's really good for us.
We've been very fortunate as far as volunteers. We value what volunteers in any organization can do. I've worked with them for a number of years at the banquet, and unfortunately, I guess I'm one of the senior people in business here in Bismarck, so I've worked with staff for a lot of years and really see it as a big deal how you treat, whether it's staff or your volunteers. You know, you treat them in the way you want to be treated, making them feel valued, and consequently, you know, our volunteers, we've got a volunteer list that's actually bigger than what we can use right now.
Yeah, it's any mission-driven organization relies on volunteers. Almost inevitably, you do. of course, you're vulnerable to burnout with that, to overextending people, to people committing beyond what their bandwidth is. I'm guilty of that at times. How do you kind of manage that, or what's like a trigger point from when, all right, here's some vital tasks we need to maintain and sustain this program? At what point do you start looking at, does this need to be a paid position, and how do we transition to that? Or for Matt at Surprise, or Jim and Cindy at the Dream Center, how does that conversation usually go? Is there a trigger point or a point where you know that, all right, this is no longer a volunteer position, we have to create a paid staff position for this?
Yeah, it's obviously an ongoing challenge and or opportunity, depending how you look at it. I think over time, as we've grown or restructured, that answer looks different too, based on our needs. I think we've started to see like a clear difference when you start having to train specificity with using software platforms and passwords and stuff that staff would need to be relied upon to be available to troubleshoot, to fix. You get a volunteer pretty frustrated pretty fast trying to do things that you really need to have someone that's invested at a paid level to do. And so sometimes those lines are really clear and sometimes they're not. And so we have a person that's overseeing our nursery right now that's a volunteer, and we just try to have the conversation regularly. How's it going? Is this realistic? Is it healthy? And then is it something that you would start to see as needing to be paid? We don't hurry to pay. As a nonprofit, we really are called to be a volunteer organization, but we also need to honor positions when they grow to that level by saying, yeah, let's be intentional. We have people, I have an executive director who's like almost a full-time volunteer, and that can be a decision also. We're going to rely on you like you're paid, but we're not going to pay you, and that's okay with you. And if you can't get in a situation, you don't want to get in a situation where you need paid staff but can't pay staff, and you have the structure that would rely on that as well. So if we can't find someone to do a role that would need to be paid, then we have to ask questions like, maybe that's not a function we can take on right now as well. So.
At the Dream Center, is that a conversation? I'm sure it's on the agenda regularly, but how do you manage that?
Well, it actually is on the agenda, but we're starting to be much better as far as picking out the leaders, so to speak. And if you can do that and rotate the leaders, we found has been a really big deal, so that you don't have that burnout, and that's kind of a fine line to walk. And, maybe at some point we'll be, in the place of Surprise Church, as far as having to put on more paid staff. But if we can do it with volunteers, we're going to continue to try that.
Great question in the middle here.
Yes, I just want to say thank you so much for what you guys do to the community. Just last week, I did donate at the Dream Center. It's amazing what you do. It's just humbling. I know that you guys serve a lot of people in the evening, and a lot of people even take foods home to their families and so forth. And one of your staff members said that one of the biggest days that they had for food was you guys were giving away free clothing. And so, just a question on that is, how do you get your name out or, advertise for some of those events where you can, bring things in for donation so that you're giving it to these people? Are you on more than one social media platform, and who does your marketing?
We do a lot of Facebook posts because they're free. But Jim is actually he does a lot of marketing. He always has for the business. And so sometimes we'll boost those posts so that they get seen by other people that are not actively looking for us. But we definitely rely on other people and other people's platforms in order to get the word out. Like Kingdom Business, they were getting the word out that it was going to be happening at the Dream Center, and the banquet was talking about it, and the church that we go to was talking about it. There are all other entities that we try to engage with their social media platforms or their ways of marketing that we get into. And I don't know, did we do an ad in the paper for that?
No.
No? Okay. I couldn't remember because I don't read the paper. I don't have time. But
There's also the public service announcements and press release type things that go out for some of those events. For our open house at the Dream Center, we did do a little bit of newspaper advertising for that, and some public service announcements, press releases, and that proved to be quite successful. We anticipated about 500 individuals, and we actually ended up with almost 1,000 attending that day. And that was snowpocalypse weekend there, so we considered ourselves pretty fortunate there. I think when you're trying to promote something like that, you really need to look at your audience. Who are you trying to reach? As with any other types of advertising. And so many of the people that we deal with, we're looking at the lower income community, people who can't subscribe to a lot of programs, and Facebook has been very successful for us there. In most cases, more successful than some of the media has been. But it still doesn't hurt to do the press releases. That's a big deal.
So in a nonprofit model, it's, one of the big difference between nonprofit and for-profit, of course, is who you're selling to. Your funders are not who you serve, your customers, really.
Right.
So when you look at trying to manage that with what the assets of the organization are, you have your physical assets, you have your funding, but when I look at both of your programs, your assets are your stories, right? So either from your volunteers, from the people you serve, or from the people that fund you, do you have some like flagship, really great stories about connection, or somebody got something really profound out of a service experience, or it doesn't even have to be that profound, but like what are your asset stories for either the Dream Center or for Matt at Surprise with the different programs you're working on?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, bullet point lists of accomplishments are nothing compared to people hearing a story of life change. So this weekend, we're sending a group of people to the Burley-Morton County Detention Center to do a church service there. And so glad to be able to get back to doing that after COVID. Now that we've been around long enough, our team is going to be comprised in part of people that we met in prison the last time we were there.
Cool.
That got out, came to the church that went to the prison, developed their faith, developed their leadership capacity, got sober, and now are like, dude, I want to be a part of that. I want to tell people where I was terrified, scared, alone, afraid, hopeless, that I can get there too, and maybe someday I'll be back here saying what I've learned and what I've accomplished. So to watch someone go from the full spectrum of lost son or hopeless, frustrated, burdened, bored, apathetic about life, confused or wandering in one way, shape, or form, to I've discovered my purpose on earth and I'm thriving in that purpose and I want to help others experience that joy in their life. That's why that gets us out of bed in the morning. Yeah.
That's awesome. And you got some tats out of that experience too, Matt? Is that where it came from?
Yeah, I had my neck tat removed. It just was.
It's great. Right. How about Jim and Cindy at the Dream Center? What are like from people served or from volunteers?
Okay. For us, we hear a lot of little things. Our vision statement at the Dream Center is help for today and hope for tomorrow. So we have a lot of people that will come through one of the food lines or through the food pantry or whatever, and pretty soon they're asking about volunteering because they now want to give back. They've experienced, being very low, so to speak, as far as finances, or anything else, their self-esteem sometimes isn't what it should be. So we get them in as a volunteer, and then we just kind of nurture them from there and watch the growth and just smile. The Adopt a Block program has been running now. It'll be 3 years here, June 19th, and we just have some incredible stories of growth in people. Going to the other side of things a little bit, to the banquet side, we have one really cool story there about group homes that bring people to the banquet. And one night I witnessed people from 2 different group homes coming, and all of a sudden there was two people sitting, chairs back to back, a guy and a girl, and pretty soon they turned their chairs. Here, Thursday nights is their date night. They're from separate group homes. They cannot see each other. They can't sit together, but it's their date night, so they sat and conversed and held hands, which is pretty cool.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Also reaching out to other people.
Right. Yeah. They've got a question in the middle again here.
Question for you for the Surprise Church and the Dream Center. Obviously, you're visionaries. Do you have succession planning in place? So, in the future, if something were to happen to you, like who carries on your dream and your vision and your mission?
Well, yeah, not early on, because we had to kind of decide who we are and who is invested. And so there's a few precarious years where we're new, where we didn't necessarily have a plan as we're still getting solidified. But over COVID, we really used that time to get strong on the inside because we couldn't do a lot publicly. So we finally drafted our long-term constitution, created what we, for our version of what we call a board of elders, and created a process by which if I get hit by a bus or fired or whatever, that the church leaders could come together and make a plan. We also have external consultants as part of that governance structure that most lay people, as you call are random, church members, don't necessarily have a ton of experience leading that kind of change, and so that then they would kind of trip the trigger to relate to those external consultants to come in and get some input and counsel so that they could kind of walk them through it and ultimately approve the replacement for me. So it's probably looks better on paper and is easier said than done, but we do have a plan just because we sense that part of people's ability to commit to something relies upon getting the sense that there's a longer term vision than just while this guy's up there talking, as long as he's here. So yeah, good question.
So for the Dream Center, it's actually probably a little easier for us because we're so old. So anybody that we bring into the Dream Center is a lot younger than us, and we can always watch for those telltale signs that they are leaders beyond leadership, and then nurture that.
And with the Dream Center, it's in the works now. We're working to establish a foundation so that when Cindy and I are no longer able to be active participants or, are just gone from this world, that the Dream Center will still be around. That's really important to us, not to have our name there, but to have the mission be there. Mm-hmm. Right, it's not all about us.
Right. Joel, question.
Thanks, Matt, Jim, and Cindy for being here and for being the hands and feet of Jesus in your own way, in the own way that you are called to. When I think about your organizations and the things that you're doing, the heart behind it is meeting practical needs, but then also I'm trying to think about, rather than everyone in the community relying on your organizations, what is the DIY, Matt talked about the driveway grill outs. What's the DIY version that people should feel inspired to do in their own neighborhood, or how do you see that happening successfully in someone's tight community?
Mm-hmm. I don't need to go first every time. You guys want to take that one?
Okay, so as far as you're talking about outreach and actually things happening in the community, we don't have, right now, we don't have anything that we're trying to replicate to put into the community, although there were some people from Minot that came down to see the Dream Center because they want to start one there. Really what we are is an umbrella program where we pull in other nonprofits that will impact the community, and then whoever's impacted will take that to their family. In turn, they'll take it to their neighborhood, and it really depends on what it is. So if somebody becomes financially stable, their neighbors are going to go, whoa, what do you mean you didn't have to scrape up stuff out of the couch to go get food, they're going to be able to tell them this is where you can get some help so that you can do better too. And it really isn't, we haven't come up with I don't think that it's our intention to go out and create things that happen out, except to impact people there through the programs that are available, and then maybe send them to other programs too that are in the community that aren't with us. We have referrals, but just to help each individual become strong so they can help their family be strong, and then their community.
We're really about a lot of facilitating in the community, working with others. There's already a lot of good organizations doing a lot of good things, and our philosophy is, it really starts with food insecurity and community, getting a really basic need taken care of, earning the people's trust, keeping the people's trust, and then getting them into an existing program that can take them to a better place in life, or in the case of some of the things that we're doing now, if there's no program available, we will look at starting a program that will help them.
In our setting, there's a few different ways of looking at this. Number one, we try to convey that that ministry or living your calling is all of life. It's not contained and cannot be contained in that 1 hour on Sunday mornings. And so a lot of it is affirming things that people are already doing that are exactly on mission with why we exist. So yesterday, one of our members got elected mayor, or he's part Catholic, part surprise. It's kind of an interesting situation with he and his wife, who's on our board of elders. So we're just going to celebrate that and put it on social media. Look at this surprise guy did. One of our members is a Native American who just got an award from his tribe for a life of service. But he also fell into a bad patch. We met him in prison. He's back on track with his life. So every quarter, we're going to begin to start lifting up those stories of people making a difference in the community, in everyday life. That has nothing to do with us as a church, but everything to do with our mission being accomplished through our people. Another gentleman at our church named J.R. Casper helps to run Sporting Chance, an organization that helps underprivileged people to be able to experience outdoors like water skiing and hunting and fishing and stuff like that. And so we're part of what we're doing is just lifting up, hey, these folks are getting it. They're singing the note on pitch, and just celebrating that. So that's one thing. The other thing is by actually, we try to not do too much. I mean, I hear stories like this, I'm like, oh man, we should be doing this too. This is amazing. Oh,
it's easy to do that.
It is. Oh my gosh. It's like, what is it called? It's like pastor porn, like, oh yeah, look at that. Which I shouldn't say that in public. That's not got good connotations to it. But it's easy to get envious of what some other amazing group is doing, and it takes such discipline to say that's not for us right now. And so we try to not do too much so that we aren't constantly over-programming people and overstretching our staff and volunteers, so that we leave space for what we say is important, the 99% of your life that happens somewhere else, and that we're not just a constant tractor being come, consume, and then go, and then come back. That's really what the church is for. So we do some things to set the tone. Camp Kindness sets a tone. Sunday worship sets a tone. Church in the Park sets a tone. Some of the programs I mentioned set a tone, and then we say, now we want to help you do that. So our summer grill adventure that's our summer theme every year. Grill, bonfire differently. We grill like Jesus, we say, and we'll give you the tools, but we're not going to do it for you. We're not going to program it for you. We're not going to schedule it for you. We're not going to budget it for you. This is a tool. We're here to help you. And here's a tool. In the wintertime, we do something called the Lighthouse Project. So in December, we teach people how to do prayer walks in their neighborhood. Walk around your neighborhood in the cold of winter, the darkest days of the year. Pray for your neighbors. And then start looking for opportunities to connect with them, bless them, and encourage them however you can. Start thinking of your neighborhood differently. There again, we have steps and tips and videos that they can follow. We provide resources, but we don't want to overprogram them and make them just kind of like addicted to consuming church programs, because otherwise people kind of function as you call them to function. And if we say, you're just baby birds, we're here to chew up the worms, digest them, and spit them into your mouth, people will do that. They'll sit in the church nest and wait for the programming. But we say, you're not baby birds. Our job is to help raise you up to be the church that leaves the building. And so it fits very well with our mission. Another phrase I've used is, you're a conduit in the hose that God has to aim at the world of his grace. You're not a kink in the hose. So we say, don't be kinky. I'm feeling like I'm on the porn kink thing today a little more than I should.
It's a safe space, man.
Maybe I need some help over there. So don't be kinky, be a conduit. And here's how you can do that this week. So every single time I preach, I'm telling you what to do when you leave. And then at the end of the ceremony, of the service, we call it, we say our dismissal is, remember to do what you just heard today. The church is now going to leave the building. We're going to fill a trailer, figure out how to do what we just talked about. So it's kind of a constant culture that we try to create. Easier said than done, because people tend to be raised, who are raised in the church, in a much more of a passive mindset where they come, consume, and go home. And we live in a consumeristic culture where you receive goods and services, and the church can easily play into that, but also then you stagnate people's potential and growth when you do.
All right, thank you. Last question before our last question. I'm going to do the last question. So Matt, Jim, and Cindy, just love your heart, love your passion for the kingdom. You guys are plugged in, you're open, you're listening to what you should be doing, and you guys are acting on it, and that's commendable. So the last question we have is, what can the 1 Million Cups community of Bismarck, Mandan do to help you succeed?
Okay. For us, it's getting the word out there that there is hope, there is help, and just letting people know, promoting us in your businesses or personally, taking that word out there. And if you hear somebody saying, I'm really struggling or whatever, just say, the Dream Center might have a program, why don't you contact them? Really, it's all about promotion. It's all about getting the awareness out there, because we can have all the most wonderful programs. We can have people who really care. We can have services. We can do whatever. But if they don't know it's there, it's really not going to help. And it really is about help for today and hope for tomorrow. And that's really what you can do for us.
Yeah. Two things from the surprise standpoint. Number one, look for lost sons and daughters for us. We need eyes and ears. Your network, the combined network of everybody in this room, is gigantic, and everybody watching online. And we have a lot of people who don't go to surprise because it's just not their vibe. Like, they need the rosary, they need kneeling, standing, and that's just not us, right? They need structure, and we're a little bit more casual. But they know people who need surprise, and so they'll invite them and bring them. We have people who go to other churches who occasionally show up with a friend that they know would fit what we're trying to do and who we're trying to reach. And so if you go about your day and you see people that are lacking purpose, connection, community, and looking for a restart in life, be our hands and feet. If they have low expectations of themselves, God, or who they could be if they were to connect with people who follow God, they're right where we want them to be for now, because low expectations, like I said, are our best friend. And we love blowing the doors off people's hopes for life and surprising them pleasantly for God. So be our hands and feet, our eyeballs out there, and you can make a referral or you can show up with them on a Sunday. I'm going to warn you, if you start doing that, though, you're going to probably start coming yourself, because you meet some amazing people that you just want to keep hanging out with. Secondly, we're trying to do, as I said, scaling what we're doing in a pretty unconventional way. I don't have a lot of models out there of churches doing what we're dreaming about doing, which is to be, to have maximal impact non-locally as well as locally, and even to do so in a way that feeds into financially what we're trying to do in our city. The people we're reaching aren't gigantic givers. And so we're trying to figure out how to fuel and fund that as well as have maximum impact. If that thinking is something that you're particularly good at, or if you have experience scaling on the level that I'm talking about, how to take an idea and turn it into especially a digital offering that can be consumed anywhere, whether it's a technology gift or experience or just marketing entrepreneurship, I would love to pick your ear, bend your ear, pick your nose, pick your brain, And, whether it's a one-time thing or kind of a partnership of just walking alongside and giving some good input, I value that sort of thing. Tyler's been gracious enough to do that with me already, and I just love when smart people push me towards where we're trying to go so that I don't just get hung up in the idea world, which as a church planter, entrepreneur, I'm pretty good at doing. So those are the two things: eyeballs, and if you like strategy and want to help us think a little bit, I'd love that.
Awesome. Let's hear it for Jim and Cindy Barnhart, Matt Anderson. Truly inspiring guys. You guys are superheroes, no question. And Matt, actually, you're going to don the Captain Kindness suit this week, and we're going to be flirting with 90 degrees. So that's. But thank you so much, guys, for the time and for everything you do for Bismarck Mandan.
Thank you.
All right. Well, next week we have Mandan Rodeo Days, talking about the famous Mandan Rodeo on June 22nd. The 2 weeks after that, we are off. So June 29th and July 6th, I believe that is. There will be no speakers. There will be no coffee. The doors will be locked. So don't show up those weeks, but please come back the week after. So that's all we got this week. Let's have a great rest of the week.